5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Fred says.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Oh, welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight for episode 236. Yes, folks, we are on 236, and I don't know how we're still going, but somehow we are. Tonight we have a, typical episode for you. Essentially, there was an event that happened this weekend in Kenosha, Wisconsin, relatively close to where I was working at, and we are not going to be able to avoid talking about this issue tonight. So we are going to cover that a little bit later in the show. I also have a study Hanna provided to us that's going to be talking a little bit about work from home and a new study that kind of sheds a little bit of light on everything. Mm-hmm. And then as well as that, we are going to start a new segment, which I don't know if this will take off or not, but I thought it would be interesting. I at least figured it was a great topic. We are going to essentially be answering Republican questions, and typically it is a question from Republicans or a conservative as to why a liberal holds that point of view and can't see their point of view or compromise with them. So we're going to start off the show with that tonight. But before we get going, let's bring in the other two hosts. Welcome to the show, team. How are you tonight?
I'm good, man. Good weekend. Nice way to start the week. I don't know. It was enjoyable. My parents came and visited, so I've been all day today. I was in a good mood. Good work was wild and crazy. I did a bunch of things I've never done before, and it was still just like a good Monday, which, you know, it's nice to start your day off with a little bit of energy, or a week off with a little bit of energy and a good mood. And seeing my parents after not seeing them for a long time is one of those things.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that you had a very eventful weekend.
Yeah. You Keith?
Today was like the first day off that was like actually a day off in over a month. I didn't have. I got up. I slept in. I slept in past 9 a.m. for the first time in over a month, and I forgot what that feels like. Which was kind of nice after working basically 4 shifts in 3 days. So it was a well-deserved little bit of a rest. And then I actually visited with my parents too. My wife and I went and introduced them to the joys of Filipino fried chicken.
Oh man, there we go. How spicy is it? Is it spicy or no?
Well, so you can get regular recipe, or you can get the spicy recipe. Now, my parents, they loves the spicy foods, so how the hell they got me, I have no idea, because I'll eat. There's some spicy foods that I've eaten. Like my parents made
this mayonnaise. This mayonnaise is a little too much. I can't.
I went hey, don't you dare talk shit about the spicy mayonnaise, okay? That's just real. No, so it was good. We had we did get a couple of pieces of spicy so they could try that, and fried chicken is kind of a family tradition for my parents specifically, just because they met at Kentucky Fried Chicken when they both worked there. My mom and her friend worked at one, and my dad was a manager who was temporarily stepping in as a manager at their location for a little while, and next thing you know, my mother had me. So that's the way that one went. But it was nice. And
your dad doesn't sound like Lumberg, does he? Like, yeah, I'm gonna have you go ahead and come in on Saturday.
No, thank God, no. Yeah. There's trauma and a half. No, so it was fun. You know, nice to go visit them and not talk politics with them, because
Oh,
we
talked
still don't
politics.
quite.
We talk politics.
My family and I don't really see eye to eye, and I try to steer away from politics because yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's difficult to navigate when you're sitting there and you're like, but I see all the logical fallacies you guys are falling into. Like, this is a loophole that you guys are just using. Like, come on. So it's like, you know what? You're my parents. You guys have supported me, and you've been there. You've had my back, and I know you're not terrible people. I know you've just been lied to, and you haven't questioned the lie yet. So let's just move away from that.
I just smile and nod when I get quotes from ancient aliens. Yes, Dad.
Oh God, I'm
those stones
I'm
are too big to move on.
I am
Ever.
so I am so glad that I did not take a sip at the wrong moment there. That really could have burned. Oh, how was your weekend, Tanner?
Mine was probably a little less eventful, I guess. I don't know. It was more of how do I get the school or the kids ready for school? Really, that was a lot of what the weekend was. We did have like a bonfire, and I did spend quite a bit of my weekend helping the politician that I'm working on his campaign for. So
Woo.
I could bring up the website if y'all want to see the website that we
Hell
had
yeah.
designed.
Do it.
Right. Hold on, give me a second. I'll bring up the website. But yeah, so essentially, we spent some time going through his website because we're gonna tweak it here, and we are going to not only tweak it, but we are going to flesh out some of his stances. We're gonna get his some of his PayPal stuff going so that people can donate. So we spent a lot of time this weekend, and I actually worked on a couple of blogs, weirdly enough, and I felt like Hanna all of a sudden is like, oh, I get to go back and use my the blog skills we learned 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So him and I
We
went
also
through
have
and-
a really big resource of old blogs that can be just political and not particularly a religious, and that we can use as resources and things like that too. It's something I've been thinking about going back through and bringing back some of the old memories.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we've done. Like
That's awesome
thing, and we're working through. So we're kind of working through this, trying to get them set up, and we're
That's
working
great.
through a strategy to, how do we go and obtain the younger youth vote? That's essentially what we're looking to get, because so we did some studies, right? And that was the other thing we did this weekend is we actually went over and looked at numbers, right, of voters, and so the voters that we had, for example,
for his district.
What those actually did is they allowed for us to understand who votes for him, who would vote for him, and technically he saw I think it was a 19 to 20% increase in this primary, just the primary people voting for him. And we found that over 78% of our district does not vote. So
Wow.
there you go. And that's registered voters, man. So
Yeah.
when we talk about getting the vote out, like, we're not kidding. Like, and this election, if you haven't listened to the show before, this election is specifically geared towards that. And that's kind of the thing is, so him and I have been, we talked probably 5 times last week, plus the Saturday, 5-hour like cram session. And we're gearing up. We got some plans in place to do some live streams, and we got some plans in place to start recording some content. And so I'm sure some of it will appear on the show. But we'll see. It kind of just depends, how creative I get. So we might be digging into the how do I make a video again resources. So
Cool.
that's what we're kind of working towards. So I might be helping him direct a commercial in the next month if we can gain enough money. So
That's cool. I looked into the liberal progressive vote in Ohio, and I found a link for crickets chirping. It's been frustrating trying to find somebody to support out here. All of the progressive candidates are like Joe Biden clones because that's what they have to do to get any votes out, because the kids just don't come out, or you see the kids in their pickup truck 4 dudes. One of them is holding a giant Trump flag, and they just drive around laughing at people. I've seen like this is, yeah.
There you go, buddy.
That's it right there. That's home.
I found your website.
That's the
Found it.
home. That's the home. That's that, and you could play the cicadas. That's the new thing that it doesn't quite match the hearing aid frequencies, but dude, it sounds like there's just like a TV with white noise in the background outside nowadays.
That's crazy. I won't play the cicadas because that's probably a not nice move.
My hearing aids will explode. My head will be like a scanner's moment. You guys have to come out here and pick up all the pieces off the ceiling.
I can see that. Well, enough jibber jabber. I think. We love a minute. It's funny. I guess I'm going to jibber jabber for a few more minutes. There's a podcast I listen to for X-Wing, a board game that I play, and it's kind of funny because there's the one podcast I listen to is always like 2 hours long, and they always have 20 minutes of filler. Like, and so what they were talking about last week was how this one host eats. Particularly. So I have a question for everybody since we're going to kill a little bit of time. I think this is a fun question. I could be wrong. We'll do that.
So what am I eating weird? It's like people I've heard the one that people who eat burritos from the side, and I will fight you.
All right, so that's not it. It is, do you mush food on the top of your mouth? So when you chew, do you put the top of the food towards the top of your mouth and help use the roof of your mouth to chew your food, essentially, versus your teeth?
I'm a squirrel. I'm a side packer. I stuff it all in there. You chew it from the middle out, and you pick it on the sides, and then once it's all mashed, you can swallow it up. My wife makes fun of me all the time. When I eat with just like puffed up cheeks, and it's bad. I'm terrible. But yeah, I'm like a gerbil or a squirrel.
So I think we deserve a video this week of one of your dinners, and you can just post it right live on Facebook. Or we're gonna see Hanna eating for the first time. How about you, buddy?
I mean, I'm definitely more of the side chewer, but I have been known to use the roof of my mouth every once in a while.
What are you eating that you could smash with? Did you eat peas and?
I have no idea. Okay, I won't lie. I don't sit there and analyze how I eat.
Your tongue like
you're going
7 inches thick. Yeah, like what are you doing with your?
Depends on if I got stung by a bee.
Yeah.
So I did an analysis, a small one, and I do use the roof of my mouth, but not the way that guy does. Like, I don't take a bite like that. I don't do that.
That's insane. That's ice cream behavior, but you can't do anything else.
But I do. You can. They talked about eating Captain Crunch. I should play the segment for you. It's very weird, but it was just funny because as we do these like intros, sometimes I kind of go, well, I wonder if we lose people, or I wonder if people like just skip to a certain point in the show. And then I thought about that. Maybe. I was like, well, maybe I should try and make that consistent. I've never thought of that in my whole life. And like these dudes talk about it, and they're like, in this show, they're like, if you want true X-Wing contact, jump 20 minutes in because we do this bullshit for 20 minutes every time. And
yeah,
I've never timed them exact, but they're usually pretty close to it. So
I don't know. I mean, there's something to like if you listen to a podcast at all. Like my favorite podcast, my absolute favorite podcast of all podcasts is a show called Reply All. The two guys and the few people that come in and out, but like their dynamics, the things they're interested in, the things they're really good at. Like there's just when they have a moment when they're talking and having fun, like it, and it's just like a relationship. And some of the best shows are ones where they don't even really answer anything or do anything like really impressive about internet culture. That's what their show's about. But they're really good and really smart. Their in-depth stuff is awesome. But like when you find like a show where you like the people, it's kind of like a TV show where you like the people. I mean, like you create like a relationship with it. And so like when they talk about like their lives, it's cool. I enjoy it. And so like, it's not like, why aren't you talking about the newest thing on Twitter? Like, you know, so like if they came in here and like, oh, that's the topic of the show. But if they listen on a regular basis to a couple of people that just, I mean, it's friends talking at the beginning. And that's in this day and age, that kind of just calm conversation is also kind of nice because everything goes straight in for the hard jugulars all the time now. I don't, you know, I talked to a guy not too long ago, and in 30 seconds of "Hey, how's it going?" he was telling me that only 10,000 people have actually died from COVID, and this is all BS, and we shouldn't be wearing masks. Like, I didn't even have time to like breathe back in after starting to talk to him. So like, talking with some people and filler stuff. Some people might shoot by it, but I think if anybody listens to this regularly, I think they probably enjoy our relationship and conversations too.
Well, let's keep moving forward. So here's the new segment, and I wanted to do this only because I find myself answering conservative questions in some of the local forums, and I unfortunately am in them a little bit more now just because of promoting a candidate, stuff like that. So this was a question that came up. Why do liberals think all conservatives are Nazis? And it kind of sparked by the meme, and I don't know if any of you've seen the meme. But it's essentially was sparked by a meme where there's a bunch of people waving, and the people waving are essentially related to a Trump crowd, and then underneath it they have the people in the Nazi party, and they said, now I understand how people have gone from doing how people become complicit about supporting Nazis, because people were not for the gas and stuff like that. Nobody wanted concentration camps, none of that stuff. But that's not how it all started, obviously.
Yeah.
And while I will say we have to be very cautious in trying to relate Trump to Nazism, and I think we did an episode on that. Are you sure?
It sounds familiar. Sounds very familiar.
Yeah. So, I'm always very cautious on that, but at the same time, to some extent, the meme has a valid point. But what it did is it sparked a conversation with somebody basically who was very upset by the fact that they thought they were being related to Nazis. So what they said to us was, I think both sides are going to have to find common ground. Honestly, I'm conservative, but that doesn't make me a Nazi. We each have our own set of beliefs that we base everything off of. So we weren't going to agree on everything, but it doesn't help when the media pits us against each other. So that's kind of the premise of the beginning of this discussion. And so as we get into this, I guess let's start with Buddy here. Do you feel that we can relate the majority of conservatives to Nazis, and what's your take on this?
Oh, wow. There's a lot to unpack from that suitcase. Can we just set it on fire instead?
Well, no, I have a response, but I don't want to steal 20 minutes of a segment when,
No, I understand the comparisons, because I look at the nuance and try to parse through it. And I mean, I'm uncomfortable making that equation simply because it's not all conservatives are Nazis. Like that's blatantly true, and a Nazi is a specific type of person who we went up against in the Second World War. However, modern conservatism has become far too comfortable with white supremacy and this whole nationalism, and honestly the whole God, I'm drawing a blank on the term here, but basically it is that it looks from the outside very similar to the rise of a fascist dictator who wanted to establish the Third Reich. And while I will not actively say, call somebody a Nazi for defending, I also am not going to say that, their views are non-problematic, and probably, and I'm not going to say that their views probably, aren't racist, because in a lot of times it's a very subtle form of it, and it's very unchallenged on the individual level. So, I mean, I don't think they're all Nazis, but I do think that they're a lot more comfortable with Nazi ideology than they're willing to even think about. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I understand the perspective. So For me, for this particular situation, I always think back to, it's Godwin's Law right out of the gate. So humans are just naturally predisposed to think back to the most recent, modern, absolutely horrific thing they can think of. And if you want to do all the standards of modern horror, you look to the the caretakers of the Holocaust as the worst possible ending for a government to have. It's probably one of the few cases where the actual slippery slope turned out to be sufficiently true. Is a big deal, and that's going to be a thing where when we look back to the worst thing in modern society, that's going to be just the thing that we go to. A lot of people are really worried that these are these beginning stepping stones towards that type of authoritarianism. I think it's a little bit enlightening to show how people are so quick to find these types of patterns. I mean, we are by natural law pattern seeking creatures, and so we seek patterns in things that we know in history, and this is kind of how we can't possibly take in all the information we get at all times and deal with it at the raw level. We have to have our biases and our inputs and the patterns that we typically know, and things we know usually change what our conclusions are, and things we believe obviously color our glasses. So those rose colored glasses exist in 4 different ways when it comes to this stuff. Like if you're in a parliamentary system, everybody has a say. We have to create coalitions. In the United States, there's only 2 options because winner takes all. And that kind of, we've been seeing things been happening differently throughout these last 15, 20 years when it comes to that kind of perspective. The pendulum is swinging, and it's swinging harder and harder each direction. So I don't personally make these accusations or these connections often. In some cases, I do. Someone says that they are literally a Nazi, doing the Nazi salute, holding the Nazi flag, doing things like that. Being a person who loves to go to metal shows, I don't anymore because I'm old and have children. But I used to see on a regular basis dudes with no hair and denim jackets and patches, and those patches would often have Nazi symbols on them, and it was a problem. And the bands like Devil Driver and Hatebreed who would say, no, screw that guy, get him out of here, or whatever, like that kind of thing you would run into. What I've seen is the people who are like that being way more visible now. Now, I don't know if that's the mainstream saying that this is okay, that these people can just say things now, when in the past, if you did anything in public at all, you were a pariah, you were gone. That doesn't seem to happen as much anymore. And so, like, I think that people have been emboldened through the current political climate, but also it's one of those things where it's possible that those people who believe those things have felt so cornered, and they feel society shrinking them. Then now they're really loud because those are the last dying screams of a cornered beast. And our society seems to, like, the whole world seems to be having an issue with this right now. Like, the whole world seems to be trying to, like, get rid of the last few pockets of this. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, because in all reality, democracy isn't something that's happened that much in our society, in the world. It's kind of rare. Successful democracies, even more rare. Like, a lot of authoritarians are even still in power. Just look at what's going on in Belarus right now. So yeah,
Fair enough.
I don't jump there, but it's frightening to see the similarities, basically.
So kind of how I posed it, and this is kind of a somewhat of a 2-parter per se, because they did respond back to me, but I don't know if we'll cover the second part. We'll see, I guess, when we get into it. So, my response is kind of like this, right? The media doesn't really pit people against each other. I don't see that. The concept that this is really happening is, to me, it kind of feels like somebody is looking for that, right? What they aren't looking for is facts, research, and they just listen to the media. So when they see it, they think, well, these two have to be in competition because of the pure fact that they're giving us, quote unquote, the exact same facts. But
yeah,
is
it's
it
climate
really
change. Are they equal, or is it only 2 guys versus 98? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I gave the example of, if you think about it this way, look at the child who murdered protesters in Wisconsin. The media is giving you 2 different opinions, which we'll talk about tonight, later in the show. But if you look at the autopsy report and you ignore everything both sides of the media say and just look at the autopsy report for the first victim, he was shot in the back. Now you tell me how that was self-defense, because I'll tell you what, if somebody rushes at me and I wave a gun in their face and then they turn around and run, it's not self-defense if I shoot them. Now, we'll get into that because I pulled self-defense law from Wisconsin, and we'll go through that because I'm getting I'm getting a lawyer on, whatever you want to call that, on your ass.
Lawyered
On your ass tonight. But so there's that. I said, so this indicates that there was no cause for self-defense. And then if you read the actual laws, like I just said, it does not justify it. Therefore, he did commit some sort of murder. Again, it does not have to be first-degree murder, but it was murder. You have to admit that. If you did the research and you didn't listen to the media. Now, you can listen to the media, and if you listen to what each side of the media is saying, the liberal media is telling you he murdered them. The conservative media is raising funds, and then we had somebody in a very high-ranking office say that it was self-defense. That person obviously did not watch the video, do the research, and then go from there, actually get the autopsy report. So now
tying that back into Nazis.
Yeah. Now we bring it back into Nazis. So now if you want to reference the meme, essentially the person who pushed the meme out to the public general has a realization of how people were not technically Nazis when Hitler came along with his plan, right? Mm-hmm. So originally people were buying into what the media was saying. They weren't saying horrible things, but they were using similar tactics. This isn't conservative or liberal in any way, shape, or form, because people are led, and people usually don't like to change sides very easily. They hit a comfort zone. They stay there. So what does that leave with? We have two options, let's say. We have to examine the evidence for what each party is saying and what they want to accomplish. So on one side, we have a party that wants border control. And on the other side, we have a party that wants a little bit of border control, but not quite as much. But the huge stark difference here is that one party has instituted locking up people into camps, and the other one did not do that. We have that. That is a fact. We have the fact that even if the second party did a little bit of it, it was not to the extent of the other one. We also can see that when pressure has been applied to one party versus the other, we can see that how one party has failed to react in favor of the majority populace, whereas the other party succumbs to the pressure. Now, that doesn't mean that they're right. They're still not right. They should be on the right side of history, and they're not. But at least they are succumbing to pressure. So the story goes that one party actively was locking children and parents in camp while the other one is not. So now tell me why you think we are going to sit here and relate some conservatives to Nazism. Now, if we want to keep going, even deeper, this person essentially responded back to me, said they don't agree with locking kids up. They don't agree with this at all. They think that that's silly and that should not be happening, and they don't agree with everything the administration has. But what they did, because one of the other things I kind of pose, and this is what I usually pose, is that if we look at the facts, you have to tell me who you're going to vote for then. So if we boil things down to facts and we say, where are my positions and where are your positions? And let's talk about this, because if your positions align over here versus over here, you have to vote over here because your positions align a little bit closer. And I will call the Democratic Party out because there's at least two people on this show whose positions do not align with either party right now very closely. So there is that. That's a fact, but you have to choose something to vote for. And we could get into whether we're going to vote for third party or not. That's a whole different discussion later on. But what that person did is, and they came in and they said, well, you're not pro-policing. My husband's an officer. Oh, you're not pro stopping riots. This is this, and let me boil all of my positions down to one position. And if I have to pick reason why I vote, and you both can guess, tell me what position you think is the real reason that they vote conservative.
Pro-life.
There you go.
That's always when we were at the Michigan Atheist Convention, that was the message that you can consolidate the entire perspective for conservatives on that one thing. They will rally Supreme Court, they will rally pussy grabbing, and they will rally adultery. They don't care if they get that one thing, and progressives can't quite go that too much.
I'm going to disagree a tiny little bit though, and I will say that I think Trump has expanded that.
Yeah, he probably has a little bit, but I mean, the only thing I can think of is that if you look at like what people typically like to do, they also do really like to pick the few bad apple argument, right? Is that all Antifa is a guy kicking in windows and lighting a legitimate small business on fire. All conservative protesters are out there aiming their guns at black people. They're full on racist, want to murder people. We those are the loudest people in those two groups, but I don't think they're representative of the whole. And this is something that both sides have to come to terms with. But one of the things is that we usually see one of those groups actively being more politically effective, and that's part of why we're worried, because the Tea Party and all those groups, they really did prioritize these groups on the outside and bring them in. So like that's what we're so worried about, is that we see this political motivation, the rioters and everything. They're effective in damaging and changing the public discourse, but as far as actually getting things done when it comes to being inside the system, a la SLC Punk, it's not so effective. But the conservatives have really, really mobilized, and it's been something that in the liberal and progressive movement, we're just like seeing all of these things where they're checking boxes, like growing these types of bases in politics, and it looks like someone growing an authoritarian base, and it's scary. It is scary. Whether or not we'll be able to refute it and rebut it, I would like to think we can, but I don't say they are Nazis, but they're definitely behaving like, some of them are definitely behaving like it. And some of them openly do the salutes and do like that. Like, it's just a really weird double thing there. Cause like,
yeah,
it's scary.
And that's the other thing is so when we talk through these things, right? Like we could talk, I have a whole response to her abortion thing, but we're not going to get into that because it kind of deviates from the discussion of, why do some people consider conservatives following the path towards Nazism? And this is part of the reason I could kind of go back to that, right, is because when we look at the protest discussion, we honestly have to look at what is happening. Black people are being murdered left and right, and are being murdered for things white people are not. That's a fact. I literally have a video on my timeline.
That guy in the truck
every 2 or 3 days with the guy in the truck. There's a couple other. I have another video of a guy arguing with an officer. I have another guy pointing a gun at the officer. So if you go on my timeline within the last 2 weeks, there's like at least 2 of the 3 of these videos, and that's just videos. Now we can actually talk the statistics. We could get into that. I think we did. We did that already about a month ago. So you could sit here and talk about why why this is happening and why this is not. But I could tell you a 17-year-old walked away, not killed. But the guy who was going to his truck, oh, by the way, it's been demonstrated he wasn't actually grabbing the knife, but he was getting into his truck. The officer shot him in the back 7 times. Oh, could they have tased him? Could they have done all these other things? Could you have shot the tires out? We talked about this last week. So again, there's that to go into, right? But when we look at how some of these riots have been started as well, if we were to take a count of who's been charged, guess what percentage people have been white that have been charged?
Very low.
No, 65% of the people being charged for starting the riots and the fires are white people. So it's not whether they're liberal or not is inconsequential. It's inconsequential because these people are the ones that are starting the riots. So again, we could talk about whether it's right or wrong or what's going on and all these other things,
Yeah.
and we're not going to get into that right now. But here's the deal. If you want to fix rioting and destruction, the answer is not to let 17-year-olds murder people, which, by the way, Officer Steve, you're insanely ludicrous and obviously a troll. You don't let 17-year-olds and teach them to go out and shoot people unless you're racist. Maybe you're racist. I don't know. But, we sit here and we look at those things. These people need better training. I'm not talking about defunding the police to abolish them. I'm talking about reallocating funds for better training, specialized officers to help with this, to help with riot situations, and to work towards reducing the amount of minority deaths that are happening. Because at some point, when you have that, what are you going to do? And maybe next week we'll cover the pro-life thing, because any person that's really truly claims they're pro-life would not be for Kyle murdering those people no matter what. That's not pro-life. That's not pro-life at all. That's pro-birther. That's all it is.
It's
And
pro-fetus.
pro-fetus.
Yeah.
I said that too, but that's usually a little bit
And I'd be
more
curious.
offensive of a word.
I'd be curious what they think of people that are on death row, who've gone through the system, that have been, those kinds of things. So, like, in the end, we see the Nazi perspective as like a very stark and intense one, and we see similar stark and intense and like really, really dangerous views happening in the conservatives and I mean fringe, but still in the Conservative Party. The Democratic Party isn't particularly, I guess, perfectly opposed to some of these things, the centrists and natural perspectives that they have. So like, but the Democratic Party and the progressives are way more diverse in these types of things. And it seems like the Conservative Party is really becoming more of an ideological singularity, which it's really easy to really push big things. Like I always say on this show is that it's dangerous when governments are very efficient, because they can take your rights away and they can exterminate large groups of people for whatever really quickly. Big, cumbersome things that have all kinds of problems don't usually do that. So democratic, well-represented governments can't usually do that. The Democratic Party is this big, lumbering thing that holds all of these people's perspectives together, and they're supposed to be efficient and figure out a way to do it. It's hard, but the Democratic Party in its current form, if it's controlled just by the few people at the top, it could potentially be something like that, but it's nowhere near that kind of like idiosyncratic like collectivism that they're having in the Conservative Party. And it's another thing that makes it seem like they have this really weird unifying philosophy, like authoritarian groups like the Nazis. And so that's where it comes, I think.
Exactly. Oh, well, like I said, I think that's a fun segment. If either of you get these, and you're welcome to pose the questions. If there are things you haven't answered and you just want to flesh out, we can do that. I'm all for 100% for keeping this segment going. I think it's kind of fun, honestly.
Maybe we could even like pick, like each of us have a question, and we can make like a Twitter poll or a Facebook poll and see if people will vote on which one they want answered. That'd be cool. To get some interaction, I have to get some people feeding back. But either way, I enjoy it. I don't know. It's a good time.
Not just anyone, but people.
People. P-E-P-U-L.
Crab people? Taste like crab, talk like people?
Never hear that.
Anyway, moving on.
Continue.
Well, we wanted to do is Hanna brought up a segment about work from home. And before we get into our final segment for the night, I wanted to actually kind of go through this, because I think this is kind of important as more people are actually working from home, i.e. myself and that type of thing. So, the pandemic workday is actually 48 minutes longer and has more meetings. And now think about that.
Wow.
Before we get into this article and before we actually go into the study, let's actually talk through this for a second and what this could mean. So in my world, what this kind of means is the fact that I am kind of not supposed to be more available, but am easily more available to answer questions, to have a meeting. I mean, I can have a meeting at 4:30 and still get my kids to soccer practice at 5 o'clock if we want to, right? Because I'm still at home. I'm still here. I can take my meeting, end it a few minutes, run out the door to soccer practice. You can do that. But what it does is it's dragging the day longer, and it's creating a lot more meetings. And so the question becomes is, with this happening, is more meetings worth it, right? I mean, I know I'm a big meeting person, and not a lot of people are. So, I
As long
won't
as you have,
lie
as
and
long as you
say
have
I'm part
efficient
of that.
meetings, like are your
Yeah.
meetings efficient? That's the thing for me.
Yeah,
It's
my
like,
me. So I did look, Hannah. I actually did a training session for our whole company on the efficiency of how to run an efficient meeting, and
Good.
provided statistics. It's weird. I should do this segment for the show. That's what I should do. But anyway, like it would be boring. It'd be boring. Nobody would want that. You're not here for that. But like I did that. That's what I actually did. I put a whole presentation and presented it to our executive team, and then I presented it to essentially every management employee that we had, because people don't take proper notes, people don't put in agendas, people don't do sitting around actually making sure that they are accomplishing what they set out to accomplish with the meeting. And that's a
Yeah.
problem in today's world of streamline, period.
yeah, I don't have meetings at home because I have not stopped working in person. My company was considered essential, so I have been just in. We had a bunch of people who weren't home. I don't know what their experiences were like. So, from my perspective on this, is the one thing that if any of this is true and any of this is difficult, the one thing that I think is a big issue is that this is another way for essentially it to be harder to track hourly wages, because either you're clicking in on a computer or you're not. And if you're not logged in and under working hours, in my opinion, you shouldn't have to answer those requests unless obviously your salary, and then your company can do different things on that. But like in all reality, if it's something where you're tracking legitimate hours, these are things that company compensation and corporate compensation should be considering. And I'm going to guess that corporations are exploiting this resource like they do all other resources. And this is probably just another thing that they're thinking, man, we can turn the lights off, save electricity, and work longer. We might as well just sell the whole building and keep them there. So I don't know, productivity, whether or not that's up or down, I don't know enough about the research, but it's definitely something that if people are working longer from home, this is going to benefit the people who own these companies, and it's going to be a detriment to the lives of the people who work for the companies. And it makes me uncomfortable unless they're getting paid for them. Then that's something where the employee could say, like, I'm fine with 41 extra minutes because I'm getting paid for it. That's a different story.
Yeah,
Canada, what do you think?
Come on, Canada.
Well, seeing the workday 48 minutes longer, my knee-jerk response to that is also, well, what's the commute? Like, is your commute, is that just making up? Is that just adding time onto your workday because you're spending less time driving? You're spending a lot less money on gas trying to get to work, which is nice, assuming that you drive.
Yeah.
Unless you take transit, and then you're just saving money on your transit pass.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how everywhere else does their transit passes, but I know here you buy
transit passes. I don't get transit passes where I live.
I haven't had one in years because I've driven for the better part of 31, so the better part of the last 11, 12 years. I've pretty much
hold on a
driven.
second. So you could be getting a transit pass and saving the environment, but you're choosing not to. That's what I hear from
my
Canadian
city
podcast.
My city has a very inefficient and ineffective transit system.
Me too.
For such a big city, it's unreliable. And given that how much stuff I take with me, how much I do during the day, because I don't just go to work. I get up, I go to the gym, then I go to work, then I usually run errands afterwards. It's just impractical for me to try to take transit. But I mean, one car isn't really going to impact it. And honestly, my commute's really not that big of a deal anyways. It's, 20 minutes there and back, and primarily highway. So, I mean, I know I try not to drive very much, and my car is actually much more fuel efficient, which makes me feel a little bit better about that whole thing. But Anyways, back on track here. The subject at hand.
Guilt trip.
You know,
over.
you might be spending more time at, quote unquote, at the office, but if you're not necessarily spending more time at work, then it doesn't really matter as much. But as Hanna brought up, there's also, your employer kind of shifting the infrastructure onto you. So, you're paying for your own internet, you're paying for your own electricity, your own plumbing, this, that, and the other, and all the other maintenance and materials. And that's pretty much it. And then they don't really have to pay for quite so much. So there's a couple of questions of what sort of mandates could be made for corporations to kind of step up to offset and give back, because trickle down economics, if they want to prove that it works, that's a good starting point, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, so I don't know. I mean, I haven't really worked from home explicitly anyways, but I do know when a lot of my coworkers, my team was working from home, we didn't really have more meetings. At least my team didn't, which is fine because mostly our meetings involve my boss just typing out long narratives for us to read and go over, and it's like, and I mean, I had a couple of coworkers who would, kind of work a little bit longer for whatever reason, and I'd be asking my boss to be like, why the hell was this person still sending emails 2 hours after they were done?
Keith, we saw your podcast last night. Here's a box. Fill it.
I can't make that much fluid. What do you want from me?
That's
no,
funny.
your stuff. Go home. Oh, that's what you mean. Okay, bye.
Well, and it's kind of funny because, the study talks about 48 and a half minutes longer. 13% people sent more emails per day to colleagues and all of these other things. But, you're right to some extent, buddy, because I used to have a 30-minute drive each way in good traffic. In crap traffic, it's an hour. So, I know Hanna lived by his shop and he was lucky, but not the majority of Americans
so
do not.
Yeah, I'm 17 to 22 on the way and 28 to 35 on the way home. So I'm on the road more, but I work less, and I don't work weekends.
And you don't work weekends. And anyway, so moving on.
Still getting used to that.
That's the idea here is and that's the idea for the discussion is you're right though. If I'm saving an hour a day. Is it required of me to work longer or not? And so I'll give you
not
a high level, easy answer of, for me, I almost always worked after hours anyway. The difference is I was leaving earlier from work than other people were, right? And I was doing that mainly because of the fact that I knew I would work at home. I would sit for the TV, kid would watch the show, I would be sending emails. My boss hated it. He's like, finally told me, can't you just have your emails automatically send at 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning? He's like, because my boss is asking why the hell you're working at 11 o'clock at night. And we both know there's a good probability you've had something to drink tonight. And you should probably not be sending the damn emails anyway. Now, in fairness, I've never sent a bad email
I sent an email out last night? Oh, no.
Never done that. But, in fairness, I get the point because it gives a different impression. But I think their bigger concern is they didn't want people to think that our company would do all these different things in the middle of the night for them when we should be at home, having our time with our families. Yeah. Whereas I was happy to work 6.5 hours in a day and spend an hour and a half at night because it meant more time with my family. I could sleep in a little bit more. I used to have to take my son to school. So that was a half-hour drive, take him to school, plus then the 20 minutes into work from there. So, there was other things that went on that caused that. But what this study is talking about is how people are adjusting these work patterns, right? And this was, this is essentially the average length of meetings, though, went down. So even though we have more meetings in a day, more people in a meeting in a day, the average length of the meeting is down 20 minutes. I would almost
say that there's going to be increased efficiency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because people want less to do with meetings virtually.
Oh.
Like, do you want it in front of your computer? How about this? When you go to a meeting, you know when you're done, you get your break, you can get up, you can go use the restroom, go get a drink of water. You can schedule certain times where you're like, well, I got to have my personal time. With working from home,
You just
companies, and
admit
this is a problem, but
what you're
companies
doing.
are expecting you to be more available. So, like, during the summer, I'll tell you what, we ate lunch between 11:30 and 12:30 because I always had meetings between 12:30 and 2 for whatever reason. People ate early at my work and would schedule these late meetings. So I had to block time off of my calendar so that I could make the kids lunch, or I, could eat my own lunch. But on the other hand, before I never took my full hour. I 100% take my full hour now because you know what I do? I can make my lunch at my stove in my house. So if I want soup today, I don't have to eat a can of soup. I can actually make from scratch soup. And
Ooh.
sometimes the night before, I will actually pre-make a meal, like not cook it, but like pre-cut it up, do all of my stuff. Like I've had Chinese food a couple of times during the week. I've had Thai food I made myself one time during the week.
I would use my crock pot so much. It's crazy.
I have an Instant Pot. It's even better.
Yeah,
And
well, I do
you want to
too.
know how many
but,
times I
like,
made chili, Hannah? Want to know how many times I made chili during this summer?
32.
That's probably a little high.
All of them.
I've probably done it about 15 times though, between
cool.
beginning of quarantine and today, which I didn't make chili this week, but I did last week. Because you can stick it in my Instapot as long as you do the prep work. It's an hour cook. It's done.
Yeah.
I can use turkey. I can use deer meat. It's healthy. I don't have to eat a bunch of bread with it if I don't want.
Yeah,
I don't put
I
sugar
just
in mine.
the argument that I hear is that like you may be working a little bit more, but like your personal freedom, if you can do the work that you're doing from home, the personal freedom and all of these things really do seem to be like, I mean, life is better if you can work from home, and you are. It definitely sounds like it is. I mean, I have not heard from too many people that they were really not enjoying it. You know what I mean? Like I haven't heard too many people say like this is just miserable. For me, what I
don't have my
do,
kids.
yeah. Well, I know that working from home in my house would be almost impossible, but like that's the thing. It's like if working from home is like you're fighting the people in your home, then yeah, it wouldn't be quite as enjoyable. But like the thing is just for me is whatever the situation is, whoever the person is, whatever the company is, just like if these changes are monetarily and labor respective, like the changes aren't so deep and intense that all of a sudden somebody is profiting way more majorly and intensely over, and or is your productivity basically the same? Is there a little bit of time change between your commute, or you have a little more free time, but the consequences of that, like you can pick when you do your stuff, you can make a nice soup for lunch or whatever, but the consequences or the flip side of that is that you have to be a little bit more available at weirder times than you wouldn't be. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like the push pull zero sum. Like if it's as good or equal as it was, it's just a different type of work, but you're still doing the same kind of thing. That's cool. But if we see a shift from the labor perspective being like, I have less power, I'm also being asked to do more, the company I'm working for is demanding more, and I'm not being compensated for that. Like I haven't heard too many examples of that. But if someone is in a company where you're experiencing that, that is something that you know, as a warning light, a warning sound that you should be like, is this a place that's good to work, or is this something that you can report? And there's a Better Business Bureau, which is kind of ridiculous, but still people use it as like an online determining factor whether or not this is a good company or not. But like anybody you can report to, I like the personal local news. A lot of times they'll do like special stories about companies that are just abusing people and being bad places to work or whatever. Anything you can do. So like if the company is exploiting you, don't take it. But if the company is, working with you and your work life is just as good, maybe you're a little better in some things and worse in other things, but it's basically the same, that's awesome. This thing here, if you read this story, it makes you think like it's a little bit more work. But like Keith said, like, are you transitioning maybe 48 hours or 48 hours, 48 minutes of work more, but you're saving in all reality 22 minutes. Your day is 22 minutes shorter if you're working 48 minutes longer. It's, or no, that's 12 minutes. But like in the end, like if it's a net positive or a net equal or something that close, cool. But like if they're really demanding more, then this is an issue, and that was what I was worried about. And so I haven't heard too many or seen too many examples of like people like labor being exploited. But I would love if anyone has examples or any articles or something where companies are doing that. That's something that needs to be put out there and shared, and we need to shame the heck out of them, right? Because the cancel culture will go ahead and remove any of them. Everybody always says the cancel culture is just killing everything. Well, let's throw it at the companies that are exploiting their workforce, and if they're not, then cool, this is fine, work from home. I don't have a pro or a con approach for it.
There was one thing that I did notice here, though. So in the headline it says, more meetings, but I did want to kind of touch on that just because that is a little misleading as to that, because we do see the average length, of meetings that has gone down drastically. Which so to me that kind of says that it's not so much that meetings are really necessary so much as now it's just a way of checking in. So instead of it being a meeting, it's more of just as close to micromanaging as a manager can do without being able to stand over your shoulder. So instead of being able to sit there and maybe pull you into the office,
maybe they have a different meaning now or a different purpose.
Yeah. So instead of being like some rah event, now it's like okay, so team, this is what we're focusing on this week and blah blah blah, and then get to it, because
our half-hour performance report.
Yeah, precisely. So that was just something that I wanted to make note of, just because it could be seen as a little misleading for that to be in the headline, and then you look on like, yes, the number of meetings is down, but the average length of meetings is way down. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how meetings are defined in this study anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's actually the link to the whole study in there. And the reason I brought that part up is because I think it's important when we talk about the statistics that we're being realistic about it. Because I'll tell you what, you reduce every one of my meetings by 20 minutes, every one, I'll take 14 more meetings every day. I'm okay with that. 100%. Anyway. So we're going to post this first.
Yeah.
Cops should not kill guilty people. And yes, I've had to evict a couple of people from the chat. I guess YouTube hides their comments. So if you're watching the video postpartum and you notice there's some weird comments in the section from us, that's why. I apologize. It just... I did not know if the dude was trolling, and I kind of like hit the I'm gonna give you a timeout, and well, it took his comments away too. So anyway, you're welcome to message me on Facebook or in cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com, and I'll share every comment that he post haste posted. Anyway, so kids with guns, that's the topic. Right? So if anybody did not know what has happened over the weekend, there was a gentleman, or I'm going to call him a kid. We'll just call him a kid, a child, if that makes you feel better. A child who is 17, who is not 18, who is not legally allowed to carry a gun, who crossed state lines with a gun into the protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and had confrontations with people. Now, This is some of the video from that night. And there's a lot of different videos that have happened that have kind of gone on. And, so here's some video of some of the protesters. You're going to see...
I know its green shirt is... Yeah.
The green shirt should be Kyle, but you can't see his face. So technically speaking, we can't actually say that specifically is him, right? Well, there he is without a mask that time. So that one you can identify as him, right?
Yep.
But essentially what happened is there was a whole bunch of things. And if you were, the sad thing is I'm on some of these, and I'm not going to turn the audio on at all. There's going to be zero audio at this current time. But essentially he's there with a militia group. They are there supposedly protecting citizens, and essentially he's claiming he's there to help defend property, right?
Look, terrorists.
Yes. Now you tell me, if you don't own property, should you be there protecting somebody else's property? Is that something you should be doing? I don't know. I mean, that's a contention we can discuss. And the reason these people are protesting is because Jacob Blake Jr. was shot in the back 7 times getting into his SUV. Therefore, if you go all the way back to last week's podcast, we have a whole conversation about this.
Yep.
So I'm not going to rehash that specifically because it brings up some passion. But here we have is a guy that has talked to law enforcement. He's gotten water from them. And here you can kind of see, this is what their patrol is doing. They're supposedly protecting businesses. So have either of you heard of anything different?
No, and one thing that makes me wonder is he's there protecting our business. Is the caption that they just showed on there. So the question to me is that, are you allowed to just go to a different area and protect someone's private location as just a bypasser, a militia group coming in? Hey, I really like this Papa John's. I don't think they should break the glass. You have any association with Papa John's? No, I just live in the next state. I'm here to protect this Papa John's, and I will do so with lethal force. Like that's a logical argument that I am not certain of the legality on it. I'm gonna guess there's probably some difficulty when it comes to justifying that, but also in all reality, the idea that personal property is something that would justify this type of use of violence. I'm not really comfortable with saying that. And so if it was my building, my home, that's a little bit of a different story for protecting your family or something like that. And that's part of the issue that people are having here, is they're treating businesses and places of business that don't have insurance, although you have to have insurance to exist as a business. They're treating them like they are personal homes, and there are people inside that are endangered, which changes the conversation a little bit. But it's the second amendment conversation. So
yeah,
I don't really
get in. What we're going to do in a minute is we're going to actually talk about the self-defense thing, because so you just saw, and I have to interrupt, because you did just see somebody throw something at him. I mean, that did happen. It is definitely not something that did not happen. Is that something did happen where there was something thrown at him. Now, we're not going to go back to the audio, but here you can see him running away. Now here's somebody coming up and hitting him to try and get him to stop. So he is being attacked, right?
Well, yeah, after he shot someone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he's shot somebody and is trying to run away. Now he's shooting at people. He's shooting at people right there. He's shooting right at people specifically because they have attacked him. Now, we're going to talk in a second. And to be honest with you, I don't know how much Mark is pissed. So we're going to talk in a second about what has happened. But I think this is even more important, is the people are calling him out for shooting people. We literally saw somebody supposedly attack him. He shot somebody. He didn't shoot the second person, but he did shoot the first person. He starts running down the street. Somebody else tries to stop him because there's no cops around. So it's a citizen-style arrest, per se. And here he does is shoot more people who attacked him, because he doesn't obviously know how to handle himself in that type of situation. He's not a freaking cop, for Christ's sake. You shouldn't be walking around with an AK-47, or AR-15, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But he is, for whatever reason. And now you can see he's walking past all these police officers. Now, I'll tell you what, if I were the cops and I heard gunshots, right? And I actually heard gunshots, the first thing I would sure as hell do is not let the person with the gun continue to walk away. That doesn't seem logical to me, but it is what happened.
Yeah,
It is
it's a
what happened.
situation where like change the skin color of the person walking out there. Like, change that one thing, and there's a guy walking, hands up, weapon in hand, walking away from what was audible shootings just happening a minute ago. That situation is probably going to end differently. I've seen the videos where there's a gentleman, African American, same weapon as a video of a white man doing the exact same thing in a city, and the responses are very different from the police forces. I think that one characteristic would change the different response there. And then there's also the legality of young children being involved in these kinds of things. I mean, 17 at 17, think about what you in your brain were capable of as far as forethought, cognitive abilities. Are you invincible? Are you not invincible? Like, all of the things going on in that young developing prepubescent mind. I do not call that the kind of mind that would be safe to hold a weapon and be in a situation like that. And which is why the law says there is a legitimate, rule of being 18 years old to carry weapons, and in open carry, as far as I know.
There is, and we can get into that. I want to do two things. One, I would argue the fact that this is not really specifically as much a young person, I guess I would say, that is making the bad decisions. I would say this is because we don't know how to educate people for gun ownership. We don't know how to explain the true laws. And we have a person who legitimately thought he was doing the right thing for whatever reason. But the problem is that he retaliated against the first person for throwing something at him. Now, I can tell you if it were a bomb or anything that was lethal, it would have exploded. We would have seen glass shatter. We would have seen a lot of things that we didn't see. So if you take that very first part of that video where you see it does look like somebody, in fairness, throw something at him, and then he charges at them, you can see demonstrated either as a country, we fail to understand how to use a weapon, and we continue to push that narrative, or we have a person who should not have had the gun, who has not gone through proper training, who doesn't know how to distinguish the difference between a true, credible threat on his life versus something that's not. And this is where we get into the self-defense law. Now, this is only the self-defense law for, I guess I got to make it a little bit bigger. This is only the self-defense law for Wisconsin. All right? But this is the most important one.
Okay.
Because that's where this happened, right?
Yeah.
So, it opens by saying a person is privileged to threaten or intentionally use force against another for the purpose of preventing or terminating what that person reasonably believes to be an unlawful interference with his or her person by such other person. The actor may intentionally use only such force or threat thereof as the actor reasonably believes is necessary to prevent or terminate the interference. The actor may not intentionally use force which is intended or likely to cause death or greater bodily harm unless the actor reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to him or herself. So I'm going to ask real quick, and we'll go through this. We'll start with Buddy. Do you think somebody throwing a bottle at you that isn't a Movtail contact, but just, or throwing a brick at you is punishable by shooting them back?
Man, this was the question
Take
on
your
Final
time.
Jeopardy last night.
Need a calculator?
Actually, yeah, I've got one on my phone. Short answer, no. Long answer, no.
All right.
Self-defense is not about an overreaction. It is literally just about ensuring your safety from an aggressor. That's it. Not murder. And I'm going to take it a step further and argue that the kid knew it wasn't self-defense because he went there intentionally with a lethal weapon. And I would almost argue that it was almost a premeditated homicide. It may not be arguable or defensible to say that it was specifically premeditated. However, he went there with that weapon knowing full well that its use would be lethal. That is a lethal weapon, that it was a tool created solely for destruction, whether it was to kill an animal for sustenance, an aggressor, or some foreign party for whatever reason. That was not a tool created to promote health and wellness or spread happiness. That was literally a tool that was created to destroy, and that's it. That's all there is to it.
All right, Hanna, same question to you.
Yeah, I would say that no. The simple question is, or the simple response would be basically that there has not been a sufficient display of threat to his life for him to respond in kind. Eye for an eye. I know conservatives love that perspective. You retaliate at the same level that you have been threatened at. So models and other aggressive things don't, I guess, equate to gunfire as a response.
All right. So before we go too much farther, let's go to the next part of the law. So they talk about this as a subsection, right? They talk about dwelling. We can avoid that for a second. We could avoid place of business for a second.
Kind of, because it means the business the actor owns or operates. These guys are protecting private property, but they don't own or operate any of that stuff, which to me changes the perspective of what they were doing. They said they were there to protect it. So,
and in fairness, if we look at it that way, we can also fairly assume that they were not hired, because that hasn't come out in the media. Now, I will recant that statement and fix the podcast if they actually demonstrate that militia group that he was part of was hired to do that. That's fine.
George Soros did it.
That's even worse. So then they talk about if an actor intentionally used force that was intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm, the court cannot consider whether the actor had an opportunity to flee or retreat before he or she uses force. All right. And shall presume that the actor reasonably believed that the force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or herself if the actor makes such a claim under sub 1, and either of these following premises applies. The person against whom the force was used was in the process of unlawfully and forcibly entering the actor's dwelling, hence why we had to talk about dwelling, motor vehicle, or place of business. The actor was present in the dwelling or motor vehicle or place of business. The actor knew or reasonably believed that an unlawful or forcible entry was occurring. 100% irrelevant. Boom. Mark that off the list. Oh, hey, look, there's even more. I'm not going to touch that. Oh, my God, you could touch it. Oh, my God, he has all sorts of stuff. I like this.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably takes
website.
you to more specific links.
Yep. The person against whom force was used, this is number 2, was in the actor's dwelling, motorhome, or vehicle or place of business. After unlawfully and forcibly entering it, the actor was present in the dwelling, motorhome, or place of business. The actor knew or reasonably that person had unlawfully or forcibly entered. Doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Now, the actor was engaged in criminal activity. Oh, the presumption described in par AR, this one up here, does not apply if any of the following applies. The actor is engaged in a criminal activity or was using his or home for criminal activity. Hence, if I'm running a drug house, you bust in, I shoot you, I'm not protected by this law. Makes sense. I don't agree 100% with that, but it makes sense. The person against whom the force was used was a public safety worker, when we're not going to define it, because neither one of them were public safety workers, who entered the home or dwelling. All right, moving on. Doesn't apply. The public safety worker identified himself. Doesn't apply. The actor knew or reasonably should have known that the person entering his dwelling was a public. Doesn't apply. They're not a public safety worker. We've already identified. Provocation affects the privilege of self-defense as follows, right? So this probably does apply, but we'll find out, won't we? A person who engages in an unlawful act of conduct of a type likely to provoke others to attack him or her, and thereby does provoke an attack, is not entitled to claim the privilege of self-defense against this attack, except when that attack which ensues is of a type causing the person engaging in an unlawful conduct to reasonably believe that he or she is in imminent danger. Now I'm going to stop right here, right?
Okay.
And I want to say this because we haven't got to the other parts because this is so long. But this, if the person is engaging in unlawful activity, hence he's
taking a
away
weapon
from
across
cop.
state lines.
Well, no. Let's relate this to Jacob for a second. He's walking away from the police. He's engaging in conduct
unlawful.
That's against the law, right? Technically speaking, whether we agree with it or not, it is.
Yeah.
But does he have the right to kill this cop now because the cop has pulled a gun on him? And technically speaking, me walking to my car does not institute me forcing harm on that cop?
Well, my guess is the previous events, they had actually tried to taser him, I believe, twice. So that's one of the things. Yeah. So, the cops have been demanding him to stop doing whatever he was doing when he was going towards the car.
So again, he's doing unlawful acts, but at the same time, he hasn't done anything to demonstrate that he is
imminent danger of death. Yeah. He hasn't threatened the police officers in any way, shape, or form. He's reaching inside of a car or trying to get in the car to leave the area. That's a different thing, in my opinion.
Different thing. So technically, if he did have a gun, he should be able to shoot the cop. But we'll move on from there because I'm sure that's gonna going to rile some feathers today.
Well, so in this situation with the 17-year-old, was he engaging in unlawful conduct of a type likely to provoke others to attack him? Well, he was holding a weapon that he was not legally allowed to do. His parents or guardian wasn't there to be the person who is there to make sure that he is allowed to have that weapon. And he was also protecting what appears to be private property that he doesn't own, which, is also another difficulty when it comes to whether or not he's legally allowed to do those things. And then on top of that, he is doing something that, by being out there with a militia in the middle of a riot, is a provoking thing in and of itself. I mean, this is not clear cut, and I think that's a very difficult thing to say, though. Just the fact that he had that weapon and he is not legally allowed to without having a guardian. He can't grow tomatoes. No, without having a guardian with him when he's protecting said private property. The premise in the entire situation that what he's doing, being an acting adult, is I guess it's almost unlawful for what he's doing. So some of these things are going to be
taken into account. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could potentially be a linchpin that would. If you were in a clear code of law, could be the thing that would just negate any kind of claims that he would make that this was.
Yeah, and that's fine, and that's fair. And I'm going to pretend he's 18 for a few minutes here. Like, I get your point. I don't disagree with you. And you're actually just thinking 3 steps ahead of me. You're just you're talking farther ahead of them than I had intended to get yet. But that's fine. That's okay. It just means we're in sync. That's all. So if we come back to this law here, right? The privilege lost by provocation could be regained, right, if they withdraw from the fight. So here we have a guy throws a bottle at him and then runs away. He's withdrawing from the fight. He didn't throw the bottle and then try to jump and hug him. And we could rewatch the video. We could try and rewatch the video if we want. But he didn't jump and hug that guy or try to tackle him. He withdrew from the fight.
He threw something to hurt him, and then he ran away, which isn't continuing the threat of life.
Yes. The next one says a person who provokes an attack, whether by lawful or unlawful conduct, with the intent to use such an attack as an excuse to cause death or great bodily harm to his or her assailant, is not entitled to claim the privilege of self-defense. So now, this is key to some extent. This is where I wish Ed Brayton was still alive, because he could explain this probably to such a better extent than I can. But here it is, a person who provokes an attack. So now it's going to come down to, did the kid provoke an attack? Did the child provoke that attack?
Yeah.
Or was he justified in his response because of the provoked attack? If we go back to the last sentence, the guy ran away, therefore there was zero reason to shoot him. He should have been running from the bottle that was thrown at him or whatever it was. That's what he should have been running from, not chasing the guy down.
Well, what he should have done is he should have told the police that someone had assaulted him with a weapon, and the police, who are legally responsible to take care of that problem, should have sought out that guy. You know what I mean? Like that's the law. Like if you're walking down the street and someone throws a bottle at your head, you tell the police, say, that guy just threw a bottle at my head. And the police go talk to that guy. Why did you try, or would they classify that as an assault? Why did you assault that person? And then that guy would probably be like, blah, 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 and yell and do something, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause who throws bottles at people? Anyways, in the end, like that's like a clear situation where you should be talking to the people who are authorities. The authorities are a problem. I'm basically making the assumption that what I was told in 3rd grade, that cops are good and we should talk to them when bad things happen, that this is still true. I don't quite believe that anymore. But in the end, what our child with a gun should have done is not taking this onto his own person. He should have talked to someone who was in charge and said, that guy was bad. In all reality, that's what should have happened for bottle thrown at person. I mean, I've seen concerts where bottle gets thrown at person and nobody gets shot. It's just,
I've been to many of those.
Yes,
I've been hit
and
in the
like,
head by a bottle before.
Yeah, and like this
More
is a
than one.
situation where it's the context of the situation, and the fact that there's a young and impulsive and testosterone filled person who's probably been given a lifetime of things that are fallacious at best and probably just doggone terrible. And so like there's a series of things that are making this difficult. Whether or not we can claim that just by that basic statement that we just read a second ago, this is not an attacker who's really endangering that kid's life. And on top of that, that kid, I mean, in all reality, he is way more provoking than people that are protesting with masks or whatever. Because like we've seen statistically in reports and things like that people with guns, militias with guns, police officers in military equipment increase the likelihood of violent actions. And so like I would say that the police and militias carrying weapons coming to threaten protesters is increasing the likelihood of violence. So they are the provocateurs in this situation, and it's frustrating. But I don't know where the legal would fall on that. But I personally think that like anybody that's there just standing around with assault rifles and belts full of bullets, and the other people have bottles and dirt and rocks and sticks, one of those groups is more threatening than the other.
Exactly. Now, real quick, we skipped over some of it. There is more to it, but really it's a lot of...
It's a legal document. Of course there's more.
But the ending of this is a little bit more about defense of property and protecting against retail theft. So I thought this was kind of important to read, right? A person is privileged to threaten or intentionally use force against another for the purpose of preventing or terminating what that person reasonably believes to be an unlawful interference with that person's property. Doesn't apply because he don't own that property.
Yeah.
Only such degree or force or threat thereof intentionally be used as the actor reasonably believes is necessary to prevent or terminate interference. It is not reasonable to intentionally use force intended or likely to cause death, AR-15, or great bodily harm for the sole purpose of defense of one's property. Now, let's see if a third party is different. A person is privileged to defend a third person's property from real or apparent unlawful interference by another under the same conditions and by the same means as those under and by which the person is privileged to defend his or her own property from real or apparent unlawful interference, provided that that person reasonably believes that the facts are such as would give the third person the privilege to defend his or her own property, that his or her own intervention is necessary for the prevention of the third person's property, and the third person whose property the person is protecting is a member of his or her immediate family or household, or a person whose property the person has a legal duty to protect. Or, oh my God, is a merchant and the actor is a merchant's employee or agent. An official or adult employee or agent of a library is privileged to defend the property of the library in the manner specified in this subsection.
All right, so
He
family.
was none of them.
Yeah, so family, head of households, or employees are allowed to defend a place of business to the death, and librarians, which makes them so much more metal. That's amazing. I would love to see packing librarians like, get away from that book, man. But you know what I mean? Like,
okay,
they could use a little more authority.
Just to add a little more brevity to that moment there. Just imagine, because like a lot of young gentlemen, they have that whole librarian fantasy. Now imagine where she's standing there and she's lifting her skirt, and all of a sudden you realize she's strapped and got a piece and ain't gonna put up with your shit anymore.
She's not gonna whisper anymore.
No. If you don't start whispering, she's not gonna take your shit.
Oh. Yeah, just respect the books and you won't die. Either way, librarians are going to protect things. You need to be family or head of household or employee to protect not your own property. That's pretty specific. I mean, that's thoroughly and clearly specific in the Wisconsin law about self-defense, which is probably what Chris was trying to specifically say there.
You didn't like my
law? It's like leading the witness. What the hell, man? No, I definitely agree.
I'm just reading the law, man.
That's what it is. That's what it is. But I also would bet you, I would put money that most of the people there that were defending said business have no idea what that law in that state has to deal with. I mean, in all reality, they probably have no clue. They've not done any legal understanding of that. There maybe have been a few militia leaders who understand the law, who know the law, but it's their job to make sure that anybody who's operating under their umbrella or operating with them knows the rules and is legally compliant. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be a militia, if you're going to do what it says in the Second Amendment and operate a militia, you have to be compliant with state and federal law. Otherwise, they're not. It's not a tyrannical government. It's them saying you can't shoot people if you don't own the building and they're trying to break into it. Like those are not tyrannical governments that would elevate to the cause of the Second Amendment.
So here it is. So he's running. You can see him running. They claim it's a plastic bag. So it's a water bottle or a plastic bag. Then there's gunshots. Right? So you do see him chasing. There he is, right there. There's something. It didn't even hit him. He turns around. The guy keeps running. You could see them over here. And then there's gunshots. So at minimum, we'll just say on the minimum side here, he's turning around and shooting the guy before the guys have officially attacked him.
Okay.
I mean, I guess he's officially attacked him, but he's not actually struck him.
So he shot him right at the center of the screen there.
Huh?
He shot him right at the center of the screen in between the cars. That's where the guy that got shot was. Yeah.
And look at where he's coming from. So here's the running. There he is. He falls down. He runs around the car. He comes back around. So as he was running that way, he shot him. So he shot him as he was running around that car. So from behind, basically probably pot shots, could have hit anyone. This dude's taking his shirt off, trying to stop him from, dying.
Bleeding to death, yeah.
And that's enough of that.
Yep.
So
this is why trained people should be in these situations, not just Joe Bill Bob from Paducah.
But think of it this way. So even if we granted him the legality of shooting the first person, even if you did, him shooting the second and the third person are not
Mhm.
legal. Period. So even if I stretch this a little bit, it
Was
was
the
not
people that
legal
were
the second
kicking
thing
him
they
in the
did.
face in the street?
Well, they were trying to stop him. They were
I know.
telling him to stop. He didn't stop. They're like, "You shot somebody." And because again, if he had dropped
Well,
his gun,
so citizen's arrest. You're saying the people that were performing a citizen's arrest that a guy had just shot someone else. That's basically
he had no right to shoot those
yeah,
people.
yeah.
And a
But
skateboard's
in
not
that
going
one,
to kill you.
so in that situation, for the people that were in the streets that were attacking him, that would make it much more like self-defense. So the problem is that the premise is that he hadn't just shot someone in non-self-defense. And so does someone making a citizen's arrest justify a self-defense situation where you can kill, you know what I mean? Like if someone saw you shoot someone and they said, I'm making a citizen's arrest, and you're saying, well, you're attacking me, so now I'm going to shoot you. You know what I mean? Like it's like basically saying that someone's saying, no, you just killed someone. I am going to hold you down until the police come here because I just saw you shoot someone. And you shoot the person who says that I'm going to hold you down and do the citizen's arrest. That's basically what he did, even though they were doing it pretty aggressively. I mean, they were kicking him and attacking him,
Mhm.
but they were doing so because
That's called
he had just
self-defense.
shot someone. And so, like, the context of the situation, what the police see happening there and all those kinds of things, it's going to change the situation. But the first event dictates the context of all of the other events. And in my opinion, that's the most important thing, is that if he did not kill the first person in actual self-defense, then the rest of the people who are trying to detain him and hold him so the police would arrest him, they have an argument.
Yeah. And here you have where they admit he officially made a phone call
Saying that he had shot someone.
Yep.
Or he said he killed someone and shot someone. I
Killed someone.
yeah.
Yeah. So he's admitting it. People can hear him admitting it. No wonder they're chasing him down saying, we have a murderer. This guy can't get away, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And well, with the chaos and everything, like some of those people may have seen the entire situation and known that guy is the guy and he was totally illegally shooting this other person. Like nobody really knew what was going on, but so, you know what I mean? It's so chaotic, so ridiculous. Like, in my opinion, the idea of a militia going in and doing something like this, like, this is not what the militia is supposed to be doing. The militia is there to protect the cities or the people from an outside oppressive force or to a tyrannical government, like not to basically protect someone else's property from a riot of people who are, or at least a protest, and some people who are turning it into a riot. Like this isn't the job or the duty of the militias in the area who are untrained citizen forces. This is the job of the trained police forces. The problem is that the trained police forces are not particularly well trained to deal with these situations, which is just making it worse. But also get the untrained militia guys the heck out of there because they're not making it any better.
Yeah. It's crazy. And the Atlantic has a really good article.
They always do. I love the Atlantic.
I
Every once in a while I'm like, but it's good journalism.
But essentially they have an article that kind of talks about what sheepdog mentality is, right? You know, because he lives in a fantasy world where police and car dealerships are more endangered than unarmed black men, and he's a hero, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so that's the idea behind this, you know.
Well, that, I mean, the videos and pictures and things that people, you know, the internet has shown us his parents. His parents don't look particularly non-conspiratorial, non-Trump supporting, I mean, I'm gonna say that this kid has been fed a diet of Cocoa Puffs and conspiracy for a large portion of his life, and he's probably not well balanced, probably not completely, totally. He probably hasn't experienced a whole lot of adversity and all this other stuff. And this is a major issue when it comes to the youth in this country. But this situation here is just like, it's like a slippery slope come to life. And it's just terrifying.
Yeah. And here here's the funny part. He had an interview with a conservative gossip
Daily
rag,
caller. Yeah.
where he explained why he was there. People are getting injured, and our job is to protect this business. And it's like, so you're here to protect people from getting injured, but then you cause more injuries, right? I don't know. It seems silly, but they talk about the fact that these videos circulate, right? You know, you can walk around with something that can push images and video like instantaneously wherever you are. And so people like him feed off this type of thing, and they see these things, and they think that, you know, instead of a fist fight, people are unstable, I should just use my gun. They feel empowered to use a gun without like understanding the irreparable consequences, because they believe that what anybody's going to do. What are people going to do? He had never known a world where owning a gun did not go along with what someone was basically telling him.
Or
that
what
he
he
needs to
wasn't
have it.
immediately given absolute respect having that weapon. So that's like the diversity situation. But also, if you think about it, like in certain countries where weapons have been outlawed, you have significantly higher fist fights and those types of things, because people are going to resort to what they have. If everyone, it's the conservative argument that everyone had a gun, there would be less shootings. If you think about that, if every single person in the United States had a weapon on their side, there would be less shootings, because everyone knows that everyone else is packing. I would easily, comfortably, and totally refute that if every single person in this country had a weapon at their side, there would be so many more shootings, because humans are not inherently rational creatures. We deal with impulse. We deal with what I was mentioning multiple times throughout the show when it comes to the way our brains work when we're younger, when we're dealing with puberty, or like all of these things are contributing factors to whether or not you make a good decision. And having a weapon and dealing with the hormones, I mean, people make bad decisions about texting a picture of their penis. Like, how can you be trusted with weapons universally? Like, it's just really difficult to see, you know, how adding more guns and more weapons and more angry, frustrated, highly politicized people to this situation is going to be better. And the militia, to me, is going to be it's kindling, it's fuel to the fire, and more death comes from that. Like, they should be there supporting the police officers in some nonviolent way. If they really think the police are the benefit, they shouldn't be acting in between. And the police definitely shouldn't be giving them water and acting like they're supporting one side over the other, because the cops should know that an untrained person with a firearm is a dangerous person. But they're picking a side if they're not telling those people, you need to get out of the way. We're trained. We're professionals. This is our job. You need to get out of the way. This is another problem with cops and biases. And like, they see pro guns, they see pro cop, and they're like, yeah, you should have more rights. You should be given more freedom. We shouldn't get you out of the way. And then untrained Bill Bob Joe kills someone, and we have to deal with this again for an entire week until the news cycle finds another person that's been killed, and we start over again.
Well, what do you think Trump had to say about it, buddy?
God damn.
I don't know. It was probably something incoherent and about how great he is. But I can almost guarantee that at no point did he say there were good people on both sides.
He's probably been told that's not a good thing to say.
No, I just because, you know, it's hard to make yourself look better.
You don't want to top your greatest hits, is what you're saying.
Well, let's see what he said.
All right.
Of vigilantes like Kyle Rittenhouse.
We're looking at all of it. That was an interesting situation. You saw the same tape as I saw, and he was trying to get away from them, I guess, it looks like, and he fell, and then they very violently attacked him, and it was something that we're looking at right now, and it's under investigation, but I guess he was in very big trouble. He would have been. He probably would have been killed. But it's under investigation.
Do you think private citizens should be taking guns?
I'd like to see law enforcement take care of everything.
He just made my case there. The law enforcement should be doing it, not the guy in the.
Well, and the best thing is he didn't say what you thought he was going to say, Keith. So,
No.
I
I
owe
said
some
he
beer.
wouldn't say that.
oh, fuck. Now we owe you a beer. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was gonna say, well, he learned that lesson. He was
I mean-
spanked. He was spanked. Melania wore her green outfit, and
I mean, in a perfect world, sure, violence like that would be handled by properly trained and effective
man.
law enforcement,
Like the
not
Canadian-
not the military. We're not going to call them properly trained, but not the fresh out of high school. They joined that because they couldn't quite make it into the military, and they happened to be friends with the deputy's son, and that just got them the easiest job in town, where all they have to do is drive around. They can drink all day because small town stereotypes and all of that passes for law enforcement, as opposed to actually building a community. That's just the fact that he said a completely meaningless statement and really used language that was intended to make it look like he was not the aggressor is just like that just defines his presidency of trying to shift the blame and shift the burden of I don't know, everything onto somebody else by making them look like the bad guy. It's not surprising. It's utterly repulsive, and at this point the Oompa Loompa in chief kind of can't really do much to make me go, oh, he said what? Although I'm sure tomorrow he'll prove me wrong.
Are you sure?
I sure hope not. I sure hope not. I mean, I expect him to, but I sure hope not.
Well, I'm sure we'll find out, and we'll have that conversation next week.
Yeah.
Again, quick reminder: cops shouldn't kill guilty people either.
No,
they shouldn't.
I mean, if we were in the Judge Dredd comic.
All right. Moving on. Keith, you get first quick save for the night. And Keith has, I don't even know what this is. Especially because
this is me panicking. This is me panicking and going, oh crap, I need something for this. And then remembering that my wife ordered a bunch of masks. As I've mentioned, my wife is a teacher, and with going back to school, because she opted to stay in the classroom as opposed to going to the online, simply because for her, she feels it's a better platform. And I understand her reasoning. I mean,
so weddings
it's
and anti.
Yeah.
Well, this just happened to be the site where she found these things. So what she did was she was looking for masks because our government. This is actually a bone of contention with another bone of contention, I should say, between me and my government, is that although our conservative government is all about getting Albertans back to work, they contracted Old Navy. That's right, the corporation Old Navy to supply masks to our teachers, not local producers or anything like that. No, they went with a corporation.
Well, they want that Chinese claw. I heard that really does a good job keeping the COVID out.
God, there's a dark sense of humor side, or there's a dark side of my brain that just took and ran with that one, but we're not going to go down that road. Anyway, so she got a bunch of protective masks, and that's really more the focus of this website. Although, if you're getting married, they have some interesting stuff anyways.
You can get married and you can buy everybody's masks there. Like that can be one of those
they
crazy
actually
inflated costs.
They do actually have custom masks for weddings. So they had one that says bride, one that says groom, which I thought was kind of neat because when you're getting married, you want to really live it up because it's your day and you should. But yeah, so that's
Ben and Jerry 2020. I like it.
Man,
it
these
sounds
are some
good.
expensive masks, dude.
They are a little more expensive. It's
I mean, what is this
they
in
are
American?
customized.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. It's only like $5 in American dollars. Never mind.
Yeah, American bucks. American bucks, it's cheaper. They offer some deals for if you're buying in bulk. My wife bought a bunch of these. I think she bought about 5 or 6, as well as you can get interchangeable liners for these.
Ah, yes.
Yes. So you can get different colors. You can get different patterns, as you can see there. So they're not just about wedding stuff. They are,
those are
actually
full
providing
coverage, man. Those are like a real.
Yeah. And my wife, on top of the Adidas ones and the other everyday ones that we have, she did buy these specifically for going to school and all of that. So if you're looking to kind of jazzy up, because masks are now gradually becoming something that are more everyday part of everyday life, why not make a little bit more out of them? Why not enjoy them and really kind of make them part of your wardrobe, I guess, if you really want to go that way. Although some of them do kind of look like uncomfortable Speedos, because I see that British flag and all I can think is Austin Powers.
Nope. Moving on.
So if you look at some of those patterns, they're a little less grotesque, but yeah. So if you're looking for something that's a little more custom, they do seem to, like I said, they have the filters and they have the interchangeable inserts and all of that. So
and the kiddos, they have them for the kiddos. That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a fun way to handle the quarantine and the masks and all of that, this I thought might be a nice way to approach it.
That's my favorite.
Shark teeth and weed. Shark teeth and weed. Yes, this will make the best wedding you've ever had. Shark teeth and weed. Or like that looks like actually the bomb from Mario Brothers was still.
So my quick save for the week is probably
the best one.
As comical as that one. So somebody, Melania wore a green screen dress and people are going crazy, right?
I encourage people to focus future.
So this isn't the dress either.
No, that's not the dress.
This isn't the dress that she wore. Like these
these
videos are dumb, but like if you go scroll down, see that's the dress that she had when she walked down the stairwell.
Yep.
And it is the perfect pitch.
And this right here, this guy going, yep, oh man, because this is almost the exact same shade color of green, right?
Yeah.
Here.
COVID statistics.
Yep. COVID statistics.
Oh my
Can't
goodness.
pass that up. I mean, like, I'm sorry. Who didn't tell her this was a dumb idea?
To the hills of Tennessee.
This one supposedly, and I didn't even know this till I saw this about her wanting to replace all of Obama's toilets.
Showers. Yeah, it's a weird thing. If it's real, it's just gross.
Hills of Tennessee.
Oh,
Epstein.
Who's that? Oh, come on, guys. That's not fair. Oh, is
Epstein
that her and Epstein?
Oh man.
100% not fair.
No.
Have an overwhelming.
There's one with Biden, which, hold on, we're going to go back that a minute. Can we go back here?
It starts it back over again. But yeah.
Look right here. That's kind of creepy where he shows up, right? I mean,
yeah.
We had that conversation.
That's his sniff zone. We know.
Yep. It's kind of creepy and it fits way too closely. Oh, here it comes again. Oh my God.
The Queen of England had a similar gaffe. And hers was like wholesome. People put like cats in outer space. It was awesome. It was happy, like bananas and things.
Trump finally made his grand entrance, flanked by
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Did Colbert do some color?
Yep.
Yeah, he did.
Yep, he did.
Oh, he put Stormy Daniels on.
Yep.
Stormy on Melania. That's brutal. That's brutal.
Oh.
That's another level of brutal. Although I will say, listening to Stephen Colbert hit his punchlines with no crowd in the background besides his producers and his wife, it's painful too. I don't know if you guys have watched any of that stuff, but I don't know. It's like all of TV is now YouTube videos.
It's the riots. The riots just showed up. How'd that happen? Wait, the riots are at the White House? Well, why are they not? Why are they not shooting her right now? I'm pretty sure she's not white. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Oh man.
But here's the
there's the
talking
queen.
about.
Yeah, there's the cat and there's the outer space and everything.
And the eggplant.
That's so happy. Like you're just like, oh, that's cute. She may not have known, and it's perfect. And then the other reaction is just like, no, that just Yeah.
It's wrong. It was wrong of me to do that. I won't lie and say that was probably the only pleasurable thing for that day that I got out of politics. But so Hannah, what's yours about?
Halfway real satire. Have you guys heard about Christians saying that the most recent hurricanes are Donald Trump's fault? I remember when the hurricanes were Obama's fault and they were homosexuals' fault. I haven't heard Donald Trump being blamed for any of that stuff. It's like like nature. Stop doing these things based on a presidential political perspective. I don't know. It's just an interesting thing that I thought was pretty cool. But in all reality, we haven't seen the likes of Kenneth Copeland or whatever that crazy dude's name is saying that the weather is specifically and unequivocally a result of the person who's in charge of just one country in the North Americas. Like, we haven't seen a lot of these things that we typically see a Democratic or a non-conservative, uber conservative and Christian president being blamed for. And it's funny because, it seems like it's almost like a perspective-based situation as opposed to an actual real thing that where they can verify through prayer or whatever that something has changed here. So I guess maybe Donald Trump really is the savior and the son and whatever weird things that I see on 4chan, because I do check that stuff and the conspiracy subreddit, because you need to keep an eye, as Sun Tzu says, on your enemies.
It's almost like it's kind of almost like one side specifically calls it out, but the other party doesn't. I don't know. I think we had that conversation at the beginning of the show. Yeah. I don't know. It's been almost 2 hours, so my brain's a little muddled, but I'm pretty sure I don't know, man. Remind me, did we just have this conversation?
Yeah, it was the lesser of two evils conversation.
No, that wasn't it.
Yeah, it's November. It's November. It's leaking into September because that's going to happen real soon here.
It is, folks. I don't know.
Get your absentee ballot. I mailed mine in tomorrow because I filled it out today. And you guys should get your request. And that should be the most important thing in your lives right now, is to get that in and get it in early. If you can drop it off at your local, do it. Drop it off at Dropbox. Whatever you can do. Make sure it gets in as early as possible. Be proactive. Do not wait to the last minute this year.
But don't upload it to your Dropbox. Drop it off in the government Dropbox. Because if you upload it to Dropbox, there sure shit ain't going to be no one looking at that.
Dropbox was an ancient technology. This is.
It's not. My company still tried. Anyway, we're gonna move on. I don't want to talk about Dropbox. Thank you all for joining us for another amazing episode. We'll be back next week with a Canadian segment. I promise. We'll kick the Canadian in the ass a little bit more often than once every.
It's 2 knuckles next week.
He thinks
I just won.
It's a 2-knuckler or a 3-knuckler. Tell me if it's a 2-knuckler or a 3-knuckler, Keith. What has it got to be?
We'll see how my work week goes. I might need 3 just to feel something.
All right. All right, Hanny, you're ruining it. Stop. If you have not followed us on YouTube yet, that would actually be greatly appreciated. Follow us on YouTube. Share us on YouTube. We're doing more video content now. Not that we're going to move off Facebook or off the podcast scene, but, any of those other views just kind of help trending-wise. If you want to give us a 5-star rating, unless you're Cop Man Steve, you're not allowed to rate us. Everybody else, go ahead and give us a rating over on iTunes. You can find us at Cellar Door Skeptics. Do not vote Bernie, and make sure you vote for your candidate of choice, who is hopefully Trump.
I gotta get some of his fight and stuff.
Yeah, we don't know. We're done for you. Don't get to bitch until after the election about this, Hannah. You are
Breonna Taylor murderers are still out there.
I want Bernie Sanders labor secretary.
Moving on. Anyway, if you want to go over and like us, you could follow us. You can also help donate to the show on Patreon. Every year we give back. This year we gave back to a political campaign because fuck the world. How about them apples? And fuck Trump. But
Local.
anyway, fuck Trump,
Local.
fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump. And have an amazing night. Good night, everyone.
Bye.